Memorizing chess openings is one of the worst ways to improve if you don't understand what you are doing. Because your opponent will at some point play a move you didn't memorize, you will find yourself in a position you don't know and you will make a mistake. So I will teach you how to actually think during a chess game so you can find the best moves even if you have nothing memorized. So I will play the Sicilian defense to demonstrate this, and I am choosing this opening because I haven't played this in years, so it's gonna be great since I don't have anything memorized here. I do understand the very basics of my opening. I want to prevent my opponent from pushing the pawn to d4. That is why we are playing these two moves. Now that I have that out of the way, I want to basically develop my pieces and castle. That is the very basic thing you want to do in any opening. I would like to play knight f6, but I'm always a little bit worried that they might potentially push. I remember positions like this from playing the English opening and basically the Sicilian as a black English opening. So I will play this pawn to d6 to prevent them from pushing. White is playing pawn to d4, but if you truly understand this opening, you know that the entire plan behind our pawn to c5 was to take this if they ever push, so of course we have to take. Now, this knight is under attack, but that is actually fine, it is also protected, I don't really see any problems. So I want to just continue with my development. We play d6 to prevent them from playing e5 so that we could play knight f6. Looks to me like that's going to be possible here, so I can just play this. Okay. Of course, every move your opponent makes, you have to stop for a moment and think, like, what are they doing? And they are basically attacking me. They are attacking me twice. So it would be a huge mistake to just continue with my plan without thinking. I have to think. Okay, they are attacking this twice. Very bad would be something that I can imagine many beginners playing. Okay, I will attack the bishop. But no, they will of course take this, attack your queen, take this, attack your king, and then eventually they will capture this rook. So I think to just avoid all problems, the best thing we can do is probably just to play the bishop to d7. Because even if they take, I think we can actually even take with a pawn and maybe even replace that pawn on c5 in the future. So that looks like it's just a very normal, logical developing move. And my opponent just castled. Okay. I have a problem. I have a problem in this position. I want to castle, but I cannot castle since I have a bishop on f8. And I cannot really move the bishop. So I have to make a choice. I can either play, I think, pawn to g6 or pawn to e6. And I think those are going to be the best moves in this position. And it's very easy for me to identify that because I just know I have to castle and I want to play that bishop out. Which one am I going to play? Well, if I play this, I'm just going to make a move for white. Doesn't really matter. Yeah, I can play bishop e7. But I feel like my bishop is not really doing much here. It's aiming at this diagonal, not really super useful, and it's also still blocked in by the pawn. If I play g6, they play the same move, I can play bishop g7. And I think this bishop will be more useful in the future. So that is just my personal preference here. I'm not saying that that move was particularly better than the other one, but I think it just makes more sense to play this. And yeah, they are attacking my knight, so I will protect it with my bishop. And basically everything is fine. If they take, I can always recapture. Okay, white just took my knight. So they gave me a bishop in exchange for a knight, which is usually wrong. Because most of the time bishops will be slightly stronger, and especially here, since we have quite an open position, meaning there are not that many pawns in the center, actually only one here, bishops will be stronger. So I won't be taking this with my bishop, because I would allow just another exchange. I will instead take it with the pawn which is now also taking away this important square. And my opponent is basically playing the most terrible move, even though this is something you will so often see. They gave me another bishop. They gave me another bishop. So now it's two bishops versus two knights. And we are actually also in the middle game. So the most important thing that I wanted to teach you in this video was how to actually think during the middle game. And to do that, it is very important that you understand the position. And to understand the position, you need to do a couple of things. The first thing you need to always do is to take a look at the minor pieces. That means the knights and the bishops. And you have to check if there are any differences in the position. For example, are your pieces better or worse placed, or do you have different types of pieces? Here my opponent has two knights versus two bishops. And that tells me that the more open diagonals we have, the better it will be for me, because I will be able to attack this. Maybe this bishop can open up in the future as well, or it can move to some other square. So open diagonals are what I am thinking about here for black. So I don't want to give away one of my bishops for a knight. For example, this would be one of the most terrible moves, because you would just be equaling the playing field basically, and now part of our advantage is gone. Okay, but I'm sure many beginners would just play this. All right. King safety. My opponent's king is safe, my king is in the center, so that means that probably castling is a good plan. Anyways, pawn structure, that's the next thing we need to take a look at. My pawn structure is a little bit defensive right now, but I am taking away a lot of squares from my opponent, and I can already tell that there is an open file here. There is a way to attack into the position. I can attack on the b file with my queen, with my rook, and my bishop is also potentially attacking that pawn. So just by looking at the position and trying to identify the structure, I already found some plans. I think for white, the best plan might be, but I'm not 100% sure because I don't exactly know this, but I think the plan might be to try to destroy this, to destroy the king side and to destroy the center. Because if they can open everything up and they can open up the rook, the knight, queen, all towards my king, might get a little bit complicated. What I will do first is I will just castle. It's funny that they are playing this because that was the exact move that I was thinking that they could play. So I'm just going to castle, make sure I'm safe first, and now I will try to attack. But this move for them was also a little bit dangerous because it also opens up a diagonal towards the king. And whenever you open up a diagonal towards the king, yeah, there is a risk that you will run into trouble. For example, this knight is attacked, and I can move my queen here, attack the knight, pin it to the king, and also attack the weakness. So it's basically a 3-in-1 move. We get 3 benefits just from one move. So it makes a lot of sense. And since I also evaluated the position on the previous move, I now understand that queen b6 and also, of course, rook b8, for example, are the plans in this position anyways, because we understand the structure. So I will play this. I will play queen b6. Yeah, of course, they are able to defend it for now with either the rook or the knight going back. But there are a bunch of things going on. For example, I think I can just grab this free pawn. I think that's fine. So I will just be grabbing this free pawn. I think that's fine. And of course we have to move our queen, but I have this escaping square for the queen. So I can always get out. Yeah, they can attack me a couple of times, but I can always get out. They won't be able to trap my queen. And I think that's actually already quite amazing. We were able to win this pawn. Okay. What's the next plan? Well, they still have this diagonal towards the king. So that is something I can identify from this position. It would have been nice if we could maybe pin the knight, but that's not really a good move probably. We can also attack the knight, play our pawn back to c5, which was an initial plan that I had. We can also just put a rook on the b file, because my opponent has a rook there, and I think it's a good plan to challenge them, because otherwise they will always have the option to infiltrate the position as well. Which rook to use? I think honestly both of them are fine. I will use this one because then the other one has a little bit more scope in the future to move as well. I thought they were going to attack me, but I don't really care because I can actually go back, protect my pawn, and everything is fine for black. And now we are the ones here with the open file. And white is actually doing exactly what I thought they were going to do. They are attacking the king side. So I was able to identify that just by looking at the position earlier. Okay. What's the plan? What's the plan here? If white is attacking us, we have to be careful, of course, that we don't blunder anything. But I don't really see a way that they will make any progress. They can always take, but it's not really going to do much. So I have to find a plan. One simple plan in any position is to see if you can improve your pieces. I have a piece that's not doing anything, so I'm thinking maybe I can play rook b7, rook b8, basically have 2 rooks on the open file, have my rook protect this instead of my queen, so that my queen is able to do something else. So I think that looks fine. We can just play this. They are allowing me a trade. I won't do this, because if I trade, I am somewhat helping them to activate the queen, although maybe still I can just attack the queen with the rook in that case. So I think it's actually fine. Since we are up a pawn, if they had a rook protecting it, I probably wouldn't have done it, because that would have been a worse plan. The difference now is that this open file is closed, but at the same time we have a new potential file that we can use, and it's this one. So I will play pawn to a5 so that we can put the rook behind it, and then try to to create maybe some kind of passed pawn or some kind of attack here. I don't really know what's the plan behind this move. I don't really see it. Maybe to just prevent us from pushing the pawn. I'm thinking of maybe c5 as a plan. c5, attack the knight. We also open up this bishop. If the knight goes back, there might be some variation where we can push. So I think that makes a lot of sense. It also opens up the bishop in a way where we are taking away a potential square for the rook. So they are playing this. The question is, do we want to exchange or not? Because in general, I told you that if you have the two bishops, you don't want to exchange them. At least not if there's not a clear reason why. But I think here we are slowly getting closer and closer into the endgame, so it might be beneficial to trade. Because if we take and they take, I can attack their queen with my rook. They cannot capture the pawn. They have to move the queen. And I think probably this will help me to just continue with the plan of trying to break open this side of the board. So you can take. If you don't see any good reason to take, you can of course also just move your queen, maybe attack the knight again. But I think I am going to take. Because even though I said the bishops are better than the knight, this bishop was a little bit passive. It's actually this bishop that is really the star player in this match, so that is fine. I will attack the queen. Okay, they are going back to this square, and I think the plan is just rook before we attack the queen. They have to move. And my idea is, can I push? Can I do something here? Can I create a passed pawn? Especially it would be useful if we can make this a passed pawn, because the promotion square is protected. So in general, I think playing a4 is not the best plan, because even though this position is still good for us, we lost a pawn that we could potentially promote. I think it might be more interesting to try this, pawn to c4, and try to see if we can maybe win a pawn and then start pushing, because this one is protected. And this opens up the queen, but this is protected. Also, yes, I did see that my opponent has some checks, but it's protected, and I can just either move the king or maybe even move back the rook. So I don't really see a problem. And I am able to, just by understanding the position, now see that we have to play this on the queen side. Okay, they are exchanging here. Usually the best thing to do is to take with your h-pawn, take towards the center. We will have to be a little bit careful that they might get some position with a rook and a queen, both working together against f7. So that is something to keep in mind. They are trying to play for this, because for example this would be very terrible, because they would be capturing this with a check. And I think we will lose that very, very quickly. But this pawn that I played in the beginning of the game is super useful. We can actually take that. And I don't really see any way for them to make progress. And I think we can just continue with the plan. We can take here. I don't really see any purpose behind that move. We can take here. They will probably recapture, and we have to be careful, of course. That would be, yeah, quite a blunder, honestly. We don't want to take this. Okay, but I still want to see if I can promote that pawn, because that is the entire plan that I identified here. So if I can just attack this one more time, I can maybe win it. And I think queen b6 pins the rook, also helps attack this. I'm not really worried for any counterplay, honestly. This pawn is stopping the knight. This bishop is stopping the rook. And the queen check is useless. It's always useless, as long as we have this protected. This queen check doesn't work. Yeah, so I don't see anything for white. We are just going to play this, pin the rook. And I think we can just win this. Knight here, the future squares for the knight are not extremely important, although we have to be a little bit careful if they go here, but now their rook is also pinned, so I don't think they will ever have any tactics. Because we might even have some check, and that could even be a checkmate if they don't watch out, because the rook is pinned to the king. They are going for the check, I don't care, we can just play the king here, which is actually an improvement for us, because now the king is also protecting this bishop. Would have been funny if they played a random move with the knight, because we would have had a checkmate in one, because the rook cannot go back. But they didn't, and now of course this doesn't work, because the knight would take, and if we take, they would be able to go back. Okay. And my pawn push, well, my pawn push is super interesting. I was going to say my pawn push doesn't work, but my pawn push does work, because if they take, it's checkmate. It's still the same plan. So I think we can just push the pawn. And yeah, I'm not really worried about anything. I think we can just push the pawn. I think that's just the plan. We will push. Yeah, we are going to push. Because this cannot be captured. The queen is pinning the rook, and this cannot be captured. So I think we can just push. I don't know if there is any way for white to stop this. That's a temporary stop. I think we can just play pawn to e4 basically and open up the bishop. Or maybe even play rook to b1 and just attack the queen and then also protect the square. And yeah, that's it. We have an extra queen. And you might think that this looks incredible. It looks almost too easy. But it is because I was able to identify, I think already 15 moves ago, that was the entire plan here. We wanted to play on the queen side. We wanted to use the open files, push the a pawn. And first I eliminated all obstacles. I removed these pawns. And now we have an extra queen. And of course, now this will be easy cleanup. With cleanup, I mean checkmate, basically. Because anything and everything should be winning at this point. Even moves like, for example, sacking a full queen should be winning. Usually I just look for checks in these types of positions. Usually every check will be a good move. And as long as I keep giving checks, I usually don't even calculate that much. As long as I keep giving checks, I think we should have a checkmate at any point. And now we should have a checkmate in one. I think we even have multiple checkmates in one, if I'm correct. No, this one would actually not be a mate, because they would be able to move back. But this one looks to me like it's just a checkmate. Alright, so I hope I was able to convince you to actually try to understand the position instead of just memorizing moves, which is so important. If you want to learn more, you should watch this video next.